I am Claudia Morales with the Music Division of the Library of Congress. And today I am in conversation with pianist, composer, band leader, educator, and founder of Bel Longo, formerly known as Afro-Latin Jazz Alliance. Arturo, welcome to the library.
Thank you. This is an incredible honor. You've shown me the autograph of one of my North Stars, not just Chico O'Farrill, but Charlie Mingus. And to think that these things are in repository in the nation's most important sacred gathering place is so encouraging to me, because it means that the people I love, the game changers, the people who tell the truth tellers, are honored in our government and in our place of sacred learning. That's amazing to me. I was really floored by that.
Thank you so much. Well, you know that that's why we want to show this to you, because it's important that you know that we have this here.
Yeah.
For the ones who don't know, the music division has over 25 million items in our special collections, and we like to make those available to everyone, not just Arturo, but everybody. So can you share with the audience exactly what you saw and what is your reaction to those items?
Well, I saw the original acetate pressings of music that musicians used. I saw the music that was in the bandstand on the music stands of musicians at the Palladium. Compositions like Carambola. I also saw a sketch of Cumbia by Charles Mingus. I mean, I saw photographs of Charles Mingus's mother and father. I saw things that, and I can't tell you how important Charles Mingus, Chico O'Farrill, Machito, Mario Balsa, Max Roach, I can't tell you how important these people were to me. If it weren't for them, I would not be who I am. They were the revolutionaries. They were the ones who saw a need to progress and change the vision of the music we call jazz. And so for me, to be in the presence of, it's like I looked at this autograph and I went, that's the pencil markings. That's the pencil markings of Charlie Mingus. And then you showed me the original manuscript of Rhapsody in Blue, which blew my mind because I played that piece in college. I played that piece with an orchestra, and I remember, like, I remember practicing it daily, and here it is in the actual manuscript. And so, and again, I wish to repeat that it is something to note that these things are in repository in the sacred gathering space of the United States of America. It says a lot for who we are as a people, who we are going to be, because I believe that we are going to be even more what we have promised to have been. We're going to circumvent all of the hatred and anger. That's because of revolutionaries like Charles Mingus and Tito Puente and George Gershwin. Those people said, no, this is a just and fair society, and we're going to fight for that.
Let me take you back in time. You just mentioned Chico O'Farrill, your father. Let's go back in time and to your childhood. Your father, trumpet player, composer, arranger. Your mother, she was a singer. And then you were born in Mexico, and then you came back to the United States when you were about five, six.
Yeah.
How was your childhood in an environment that music was a major thing?
It's a really ambivalent blessing because I didn't know who these people were. All I knew is that they were larger than life. My mother and father had parties every other week, and these folks would come over and they were loud and raucous and tended to smoke jazz cigarettes late into the night. So I knew there was something unusual about my mother and father, and I couldn't tell you what it was. For me, it was Pops. I used to call him Dad. His dad was Chico. Chico was Dad. And people would come up to me and say, you have no idea, your father's one of these great, great geniuses. And I'd go, I don't know. I just, I'd like him to buy me a Matchbox car when we go to the Herman's drug store on 88th and West End, and 88th and Broadway. And my mother was my mother was also a big influence in my life. She was, I'll go ahead and say this, she was almost B-listed. She was Chico's wife. She was like, Chico was the thing, the center of attention. But for me, a person of equal impact in my life was my mother. It's from my mother that I get my sense of compassion and love for people. My father was he was German, Irish, Cuban, European. So he was the child in the family of businessmen. So he was doted upon, and like there's just everything wasn't directed towards him. And my mother was not. She was an incredible singer, incredible artist, an incredible, generous, kind, charitable spirit. But in a way, she had to lay that all aside for Chico's career. And this was very difficult for her, I think. She had a real hard time, I think, finding herself and finding her happiness. And in fact, I never tell this story. I had a really rough time with her later on as an adult. So much so that, because she was still like on and on about Chico, even after he passed. But at one point she got dementia. And she forgot her anger. And all of a sudden, she became the most maternal, best friend I could imagine. She even liked my wife. she would ask me, she'd say, Arturo, tell Allison I love her. And it was like meeting my mother for the first time since I was a child. And these are not bad things. These are not bad memories. They're just realities of life. Life with a musician is not easy.
It's not easy.
And so my sister and I, but at some point I fell in love with music, and despite that upbringing, I created my own, like my own identity, my own music, my own sound, my own thing that I do, which is really different from Chico's. But I am grateful because Chico did the thing that Charles Mingus did, that Carla Bley does, that Duke Ellington, that all the greats do. They have three things in common: curiosity, integrity, and accuracy. They're true to what they hear, what they want to hear, what they want to fool around with musically. They don't care about the outcome. My father wrote the Afro-Cuban Jazz Suite, and he could have destroyed his career. Norman Granz just wanted but instead he did this extended tone poem with Charlie Parker and multi-movement suite. So the people that I love, the people that I have shaped my heart, are people who have curiosity, the integrity to follow their curiosity, and the accuracy, the training, and the skill set that they somehow have cobbled together to be able to realize that curiosity, which is beautiful to me.
Throughout your career, you have shown interest in other cultures and going not just to learn about it, but to go into places to study their culture, to work and play with different musicians around the world. In 2009, you recorded with Claudia Acuña, Chilean vocalist. Then you went to Peru, and you had an album called Pucusana. 2018, you went to Mexico, to Vera Cruz. 2015, you went to Cuba. So when did it start, this need, this idea of going out there and working with different musicians around the globe? In November, you went also to the Arab world.
I went to Saudi Arabia and the Emirates, the United Arab Emirates. It really began, I think it really began when I started going to Cuba in 2002, and I was going on a regular basis to research my roots. But then I kind of really fell in love with Cuba and its music, and I fell in love with the Afro roots, the African roots of Cuban music, which a lot of people don't realize, that a lot of the music we love is African in nature. In fact, it's been written about in many books that all the music we love, salsa, mambo, rap, hip hop, rock and roll, it all comes from Yoruban religious rhythms. So I didn't know this. I kind of knew it, and I knew it because I knew it from a New York perspective. But then I also started thinking about the roots of that music, because I was taught that America invented jazz. And I began to realize that that is not true. Jelly Roll Morton said, without the Spanish tinge, there is no jazz. And I began to think about the fact that the same forces, the same horrifying reality that brought slavery to the indigenous world brought it to all of the Americas. And so you have these same forces that go to Peru, to Chile, to Colombia, to Mexico, to Puerto Rico. All these forces that brought this cultural collide of European musical practice, European instrumentation, European harmony, and African rhythms. This happened throughout the New World. And so I really began to think about jazz as one variant, what we call jazz anyway, as one variant of this incredible global migration. Because then I started listening and reading about how some of the rhythms in Africa were influenced by the rhythms in Spain, and how some of the rhythmic and musical practice in Spain directly comes from the Middle East, and how some of that comes from South Asia. And so I started to see that music is really the ultimate global migrant and the ultimate example of what a human being should be, which is embracing of all cultures, not dismissive of any, and willing, in a very, very real way, I've made it my life's work to demand of myself globalism. Now that's, it's a strange word in this day and age to talk about globalism when we're in such an isolationist period in human history. But we learned a terrible lesson during the pandemic. The pandemic showed us that if a person suffers in Italy, they're going to suffer in Mexico. If a person suffers in Korea, they're going to suffer in Canada, because this virus was global. And so it took a global family, a global commitment to science to eradicate this thing. And I'm going to get political, I'm sorry, but at the same time that this was going on, Cuba developed the most efficacious vaccine called Abdala, but they didn't have needles because they were part of the embargo. So they couldn't deliver the most efficacious vaccine to their own people. Stuff like that, it just makes you think about how, yes, if one person is connected to every human being on earth, if we started thinking like that, if we started thinking about how we are, and this, of course, is, it came to me as a musical reality, but I think the implications are huge. The implications, so I love the sound of Turkish hand cymbals. I love the sound of gamelan. I love the sound of the oud. I love the sound of the hanukkah. I love the sound of the tumbador. I love the sound of the panpipes. I love the sound of the kora. I love these sounds. They are my sounds. They are sounds that I have come to embrace in. I may not be an expert in anything. In fact, I would rather be the observer and the casual observer of all of this, because I'm not an expert in any of this. But I'm willing to try. I'm willing to embrace it. I'm willing to learn whatever I can. And more than anything else, I'm willing to acknowledge the greatness. The other part of my struggle is this canonic idea of high culture and low culture, the canonic idea of European culture and the rest of the world. It's complete nonsense. Even our idea of harmony is a construct. Even the idea of what we call Western tonality is a small sliver of what's practiced in most of the rest of the world, which has many different tonal languages. So I've realized that in my work, part of my mission is to embrace that which I don't understand, to give glory to that which deserves our attention. And it's really been important to me, and it's been a source of great joy to me to be able to go. I went to Saudi Arabia, to Daman, to play a concert at Ithra, and then also to Fujairah. I watched 20 oud players on Hanukkah players, play Chico O'Farrill's Havana Blues, and it clicked. It clicked for me, because they played it with all the soul and all the verve and all the joy that we do, but they had never come from that tradition. But they had contributed. Well, they had contributed to that. And I'll tell you a quick story quickly. I know I'm talking a lot. My friend Bam tells a story. He's Venezuelan. He's Venezuelan. Anyway, he went to Morocco and was walking around the market, and he heard a rhythm that he had heard as a child in Venezuela. And I've had this experience. I've seen this happen in Kuwait, playing with a Kuwait percussion group called Boom Diwan, with Ghazi al-Mulaifi, Dr. Ghazi al-Mulaifi, they were playing something that sounded like Bomba y Plena. And I said, wow, where'd you learn that? And they said, where'd you learn our rhythms? Those things, you can't make them up. Those things are not, those things are real.
So tonight you're here for a concert. You're performing at the Coolidge Auditorium. And before that, we are screening the film Fandango on the Wall, which in 2022 earned the Grammy for Best Latin Jazz Album. You went to Vera Cruz and you did a whole experience there before documenting the concert and doing the album. How was that experience for you?
I am Mexican. I was born in Mexico. In some ways, at the end of the day, those are my roots as much as anything, just because I was born on sacred Mexican earth. And so for me, and it was the year my mother died. So I encountered a gentleman named Jorge Francisco Castillo, who is jarochero, son jarocho. He plays the jarana, and son jarocho changed his life. And so he started a festival at the border of San Isidro and Tijuana, where he brought musicians from either side to the actual wall, the actual mesh. And there, in the presence of horror, in the presence of attack dogs, chicken wire, automatic weaponry, armed guards, somehow this man, in the presence of and using those elements, created unity and love and celebration. Imagine taking the very elements of hatred and twisting them into the elements of brotherhood. I don't know how I don't know where it came from, I don't know, but it touched me deeply. And so my dear friend, mentor, and producer, Kabir Segal, and I reached out to him and said, let us come and visit this incredible festival that you do. And he went back to his committee. They have it's a very collective, and said, do you mind if Arturo comes and performs with us, and we do a concert and we play together at this festival? And there was something that they agreed to do, and then, in fact, they embraced it. We went down there and recorded and filmed a documentary and performed. It's funny because the word performance shouldn't and doesn't but can apply to son jarocho music. Because son jarocho music is music that really has to be taken part in a very democratic way. So there is no stage. There's nobody sitting there on top of a stage in a hierarchical position of superiority. No, none of that. Son jarocho is music where you pick up an instrument and you become part of the experience. It doesn't matter how old you are, how good you are. I mean, you have to be able to understand that son jarocho music is a sacred community experience. And for us to be invited by the son jarocheros, the people from Tijuana, to be invited to be a part of that was truly an incredible honor. We came up with something that I wish would flourish. We came up with something called the Fandango Doctrine, where, and it started with the tip of our pinkies. The mesh is so fine at Friendship Park in San Diego and at the border of San Diego that you can barely stick your fingertip through it. And so when you see someone you love on the other side of the wall, you go like this, give me a high pinky. And so high pinkies touch, and we call that the Fandango Doctrine. And the thing that occurred to me is, man, I would love to be able to do this at the demilitarized zone, at the wall in Guantanamo, at the Palestinian-Israeli border. Wherever there's a border, wherever there's a wall, I want to see this happen. No guns, no weapons, no hatred, just jaranas, tarimas, voz, baile, amor, pueblo. That would be amazing. So I don't know. I'm very hopeful about things like that. I don't know. I keep thinking somehow it's going to happen.
Speaking of that, in 2007, you founded the Afro-Latin Jazz Alliance, that is now called Bel Longo, right?
Yes.
And with that platform, you have almost 1,000 performances done throughout these years. You have reached to close to 20,000 students in your education program, and you have traveled the world with this platform. Can you tell us about what is your goal? Where are you trying to go?
When Wynton Marsalis invited me to create the Afro-Latin Jazz Orchestra for Jazz Lincoln Center, it was a huge honor. And I have to thank Wynton for the opportunity and the credentialization that I got from doing that, because when it was time for us to leave Jazz Lincoln Center, I went and created my own board. I went and opened up a business account at Citibank and got a nonprofit status at the state of Delaware, and put together a board, and I borrowed some money from my local bartender, and we created that first year. We had one school, 6 concerts, $40,000. And every year I would say to myself, this is important stuff. Next year we're going to have X amount of schools. We're going to have an executive director and a real board, and blah, blah, and they kept growing, and it kept growing. And over the years, we started a bunch of different programs. We started a program called the Fat Cats, which is a pre-professional training program. We get students by audition from the best high schools in the tri-state area. We send out teachers. We started with one school, and we got to the point where we now have 47 teaching artists in 21 New York City school districts. We raise funds to buy the instruments for the students to learn to play on. We have a presence in nursing homes, community centers. We even have a presence among the incarcerated. We have, as you know, as you said, we also have created a true game-changing conversation in the world of jazz and jazz education and jazz art. Before us, there was no such thing as Afro-Latin jazz. That word had not been introduced into the lexicon. And so we've done this for years, and it's grown and grown and grown. I started with a small handful of volunteers. We now have a full-time staff of 12 incredible heroes. And I have to say this, I don't take credit for any of it. I am surrounded by superheroes. I'm surrounded by visionaries in my incredible leadership team, and women who have changed and radicalized the picture for me, for jazz, for arts organizations, for everything that we do. And I mean, thank goodness I have responsible adults in my life, incredible musicians and people who love me. We were invited a year and a half ago to be part of a proposal for Spanish Harlem, El Barrio, for affordable housing, that the people of Spanish Harlem asked for affordable housing. And we were invited to be a part of a bid by a company called Mega and Lantern, a social community organization. And I went and testified before city council people and community boards and elected officials and housing preservation. I went and talked to the Commissioner of Cultural Affairs, and lo and behold, they accepted the bid that we were part of. And so at the end of 2024, 19-story affordable housing, now that's a miracle in and of itself. Affordable housing in New York City, in Harlem, that in and of itself could end the story. A 19-story affordable housing building will be built on 119th Street and Park Avenue in the heart of El Barrio, where Tito Puente comes from. And the first 2 floors are going to be Casa Bel Longo, the Afro-Latin Jazz Alliance Community and Performing Arts Center. We'll have classrooms, a community cafe, community workspace, practice rooms. We will have a stage and a 300-seat auditorium, which is perfect for me because I don't think music should be played for more than that many people. You should be able to get up close in front of the musicians. But in any case, I mean, it's going to be the first time that we have our own brick and mortar establishment, and I think it's incredibly important to honor the beautiful, beautiful people of that neighborhood, to recognize that neighborhood, because it's not the sexy part of Harlem. It's not Strivers Row, it's not the brownstones, it's not the multi-million-dollar co-ops. It's the part of Harlem that gave us Tito Puente. And so for us to be able to give back and establish some sacred refuge for these beautiful people is beyond anything I could have imagined. When I first became a musician, all I wanted to do was play as good as Herbie Hancock. This was not part of the plan. This was not part of the plan. But I am so grateful. And I'm so grateful that all of the things, all the social, political, and societal convictions I have are flourishing into something concrete. All the things I believe and have lived for are becoming a building.
That's wonderful.
In a place. It's incredible. And I'm so grateful again. I'm grateful for my partner, Allison, my son, Zach and Adam, for my staff, Marietta, Andrea, for the people, the individual, the women and men of the Afro-Latin Jazz Orchestra have inspired me beyond anything I can imagine. And of course, they're the children, the kids we teach. They're just, I can tell you one of the shining moments of my life as a musician. I was visiting one of our schools and I could hear a commotion going on in the classroom, in the saxophone classroom. So I burst in, and a young Colombian girl was crying. And I thought, oh my God, here's the lawsuit. Here's the lawsuit. Here's where we lose our credentials and never teach again. What had happened is she got her earring caught in one of the keys. And she was crying, and I was saying to her, why are you crying? We'll get it out, don't worry. She said, it's my only pair of earrings. And my heart was like, I said, okay, this is better than 10 Grammys. This moment we can place an instrument in the hands of a child, an immigrant child. I said, this is it. That's it. Doesn't get better than that, you know. And we got the earring unhooked. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, she's not walking around with an earring with it stuck to her. But I marvel at the things that I've seen. I've seen a young man come to us in our school residency program who knew 3 chords on the guitar. I see him pass through our school residency program, enter our elite Fat Cat program, and win a full scholarship, a full music scholarship to Wheaton in Massachusetts. I've seen students come into our Fat Cat program and get full scholarships to the New England Conservatory of Music, to the Manhattan School of Music, to the New School. I've seen things that I could not have imagined. And it just has to do with I don't know, not giving up. Not saying, no, not giving up. That's what it comes down to saying, I'm not giving up.
Well, on behalf of the community, I thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Because I think it's super important. Your dedication, your years in the making is just unbelievable. And you're not stopping.
No.
You're not stopping, and
not
we need
soon.
you. Thank you for that.
Claudia.
Thank you
That
for
means the
being
world to
here.
me.
Thank you for your time. And
Thank you.
tonight, what are we hearing tonight?
We are going to hear the Afro-Latin Jazz Octet, which is 8 of the most incredible musicians I know. And we're going to be visiting Puerto Rico, Cuba, Peru. We're going to be visiting Peru. We're going to be visiting Mexico. We're going to be visiting the Fandango at the Wall through a song that we play called El Marquesh. We'll be having all kinds of fun with music that I think it's, music is more than groove. For me, music is life. And when you celebrate life, you celebrate it with dance, with food, with dress, with music, with all those elements. And so it's just one. We're celebrating. We're celebrating life tonight.
Thank you, Arturo.
Thank you, Claudia.
And for you watching at home, I invite you to come to the Library of Congress to see our collections and to be part of this wonderful institution. See you next time.